Hello everybody and welcome back to You Can't Win. This is Tom here and I'm joined by Don as usual. Today we have for you returning guest AgileTablet, and we're just going to be chatting a little bit about our plans for the summer and stuff we've been getting into lately and answering some of your questions. The questions have been piling up, so we're hoping to get through a good chunk of those. So how's everybody doing?
Pretty good.
Can't complain.
Yeah. Same here, I guess. It's getting nice and warm and sunny. Finally getting into the summer zone.
It's been quite warm, but I've been enjoying it. I'm going out and biking every day, having a lot of fun because there's forest preserve trails nearby, so I can just go however long I want. Some days I do like 12 miles, some days I do like 22 miles.
What the hell? How long? Like, what are you doing? You're just like biking?
I just go out and back. Yeah.
Okay. I don't know.
Yeah, because
that's
it's
a long.
just.
Yeah.
I mean, it would be long if I was like running, but.
Okay. So how long is it
But
take
a bike is easier. Let's see. I think about like 10 miles takes me maybe like 35 or 40 minutes, something like that.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm not like super fast or anything like that. I'm just doing it because it's fun. I just really like biking. So.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd say you're usually out there for like an hour or something.
Okay. Yeah.
It depends. Sometimes up to 2 hours, but yeah, usually between an hour and 2 hours, I think. Yeah. It's nice.
Are you guys planning on doing any sort of like extremely summer things, like going camping or anything like that?
Oh, that would be. I don't know. That would be really cool, but no plans as of yet because.
Sure.
Transportation is always an issue.
Sure.
But yeah, that would be really cool. I want to take Tom to Southern Illinois because not all of Illinois is completely flat. There's a very small portion of it right at the southern tip of the state that was never steamrolled by the glaciers, so it actually has topography. And it's very pretty. It's more like, Kentucky or Tennessee, I guess.
Okay. So like hills and stuff, or?
Yeah, exactly. It's rolling hills and some forests and stuff, and even some rock formations and
Sure.
Rivers and stuff like that. It's just really nice. It's very pretty. So I was looking up one of the towns around there today, kind of fantasizing like, oh, wouldn't it be nice if we could da, 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 da. So maybe, I don't know. Did you ask because you have plans to camp?
No, not really. I mean, I'm a bit of a whiner for camping now. I used to do it a lot when I was younger, but I think that I think that like if the temperature was slightly off, like if it's too hot now that I'm like, I'm a bigger guy, so that like when it gets humid and hot, I have to just lay down until the temperature changes or something.
No, I I think I finally lost just enough weight that I crossed back under that threshold because it doesn't
great.
really.
Yeah.
I know, I'm really happy about it because I know exactly what you're talking about, and it just like you're just out of commission. You just can't function.
Yep.
Yeah. So it's been I've been better about that. I can sleep when it's kind of warm and stuff like that, and I don't mind being out during the day and sweating and stuff. It's not like just pure, like non-functional torture.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Oh, what a pain.
The only time I've gone camping, I can think recently was about 5 years ago. I went, or 4 years ago, I went to some, socialist camping thing.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And what they did is they rented there's like a nature study thing that's for like biology students and all that at my university.
Cool.
And they have like, little cabins and stuff. And that was kind of neat. I don't know. I like that. There wasn't many bugs,
awesome.
So it was okay. And
that's
for
good.
Me. And that was nice. I don't know. And then you just listen to debates about like Stalin and stuff. And I don't know. I don't know. Now I feel like it would be a bit much for me. Like I really wouldn't want to sit through those debates all the time, but at the time it was pretty exciting. So
that sounds nice, actually. Just
yeah.
Like do some stuff outdoors and then maybe go have a discussion or a lecture or something. Like that's a
Yeah.
really nice balance.
Yeah, and collective meals and fires and all that kind of stuff. That I think that like if socialist stuff was more like that most of the time, it would be a lot better than just like the people arguing with each other online all the time or whatever kind of thing.
Yeah.
So I don't know. It's kind of
Might
idyllic.
be nice.
But I feel like I'm kind of wasting it here because, I guess it's similar in a lot of the United States, but in Canada, just it's very, very easy to get to a campground from wherever you are kind of thing. So.
Oh. Well, that's kind of cool. Maybe we need to get up there and meet somewhere.
That would be nice.
That would be cool, yeah. But I mean, I think the border's still closed. But yeah, I don't know, like
well, if it's remote enough, whatever.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. Just hike.
What is the situation there right now with like all the lockdowns and stuff? Are you allowed to like meet with other people? Because you said you saw your parents. Or is that like?
Yeah, well, I actually don't know exactly what like the legal situation is. Like there's no more curfew, and that had been instated for quite some time during the protests.
It was like 3 or 4 nights, something like that.
Maybe a little bit more than that, closer to a week. But yeah, that hasn't been instated for a while. Every place still has signs that say like you can't enter without a mask and stuff like that. I went to the library recently. They have kind of like half capacity. Like some days they open at normal time and close early, and then some days they open later and stay open till normal time.
Yeah.
And they also are not processing things as quickly. Like I returned a book like a week ago and it still is on my account as like checked out. And they say that like we're not going to get to it as fast, so
Yeah.
So they're at like diminished capacity, but they are open again. We were able to see my folks, but like I keep my mask on all the time, and I try like if we're indoors. If we're outdoors, then as long as I'm staying away from them, I feel like it's probably okay.
Okay.
No, we just do a lot of stuff outside.
Sure. But are you like allowed to visit friends and stuff or anything like that, or go to other people's houses or?
I think so. I don't even know.
Yeah,
like
I think
I don't know if that was ever enforced.
Oh, it was never enforced, but they do technically they can ticket you, and I forget exactly what the level of the offense would be, but they came right out and said like when they instituted the whole policy was like we're not really going to enforce this, but this is just don't do it.
Yeah,
and I think there is a limit on groups of people. More than 10 or 30 or it changes, they've changed it over time.
Yeah.
They're talking about like opening up fully, like the phase 4 full open on the 1st of July.
Wow.
So, I don't know. Things have been going fairly well in Illinois as far as all this goes. So,
yeah. Well, I mean, here it's very different. Like, there's like a limit on, you're not supposed to go into other people's houses in general. Like you're not supposed to, and not like any sort of indoor groups. You're not really allowed to. They have like they made it so that there's like a bubble rule now where you're allowed to like have a group of up to 10 people total who are allowed to kind of be indoors together. Well, over and those 10 people can't have other people that they congregate with, kind of thing, in general. So
it's like when MySpace made you choose your top 5, that kind of a thing.
Exactly, yeah. But it's it's also, I don't know, like in my family, I get to see my sister and her family tomorrow because they're going to come over here. Yeah, it's one of those things where the rules are kind of, it's very confusing. And my sister and my mom are very much like, need to find out the exact wording to make sure they follow it exactly kind of thing. So that's been kind of I don't know. I want to be like relax a bit kind of thing. I know why you don't want to, but it's just it's like you got to think that like at the end of the day, you have to sort of take a step away from the rules and go, what are you trying to prevent, kind of thing. You don't want to. It's like a statistical health thing. It's not like the rule isn't the issue. The health is the issue, kind of thing. So,
yeah. I know what you mean about like I was getting frustrated with people staying 6 feet apart and stuff like that. Like the difference between being indoors and outdoors. Like the 6 feet rule is there for like a rule of thumb,
yeah,
but it's not like if you're like, for example, if you're stuck inside and you're right near an air conditioning vent and one person is always downwind of the other, it doesn't matter if you're 12 feet away from one another. If they have something, you're probably going to get it. You
yeah,
know, like the rule is just there to be like, here's a decent idea, guys.
yeah.
That's not the point. The point isn't like, oh, it's a game to stay 6 feet away from one
Sure,
another. You
sure.
just have
Yeah,
to be smart about,
yeah,
why the rule is there and how you enforce it.
yeah. And it's already at the point too where, see, I think in my area there's a lot of people who are in the United States. They would be MAGA people. They're not because they're in Canada, but like they would be like, and I think that they get all the Facebook memes and all that too. And
it's all the same stuff.
Basically. And so like when I was at Walmart, like I would say about at least half of the people there are aggressively not participating in the safety culture. Like they're not like, they don't have the masks on. They're chatting with friends kind of thing, like meeting up, like they see someone they know, they'll just get close to them and just be chatting with them and talking and stuff. And there's like lines on everything on the ground is like, it's like a map kind of thing in Walmart now. I don't know if it's at the Aldi there, but like here it's got like a one-way kind of thing saying you should only walk this way, whatever.
No, in each aisle is one way in the other direction. Yeah.
No social distancing, none of that. All the things that they have written down don't relate to anything. Like it's just there, but it's not being,
enforced.
Most of the staff don't care at all. They don't have any sort of gear on or anything. So I don't know. It's just one of those things where,
man,
the thing is to me is that like, it's not like, so I understand that there's like a scold kind of thing that people want to do where they want to be like, I'm better than the person not taking it seriously or something, that kind of thing. I understand that. That like people can get carried away with that. For me, I just don't like it because I'm confused about like I'm already bad at like social situations. I want to make sure that I'm doing the right thing,
Yeah.
I just get confused about what I'm supposed to be doing then. Like I'm like, what? I'm like, are people going to get mad at me? And I also, it's like a funny thing. I'm wearing the mask. Normally, if you're in Walmart, I'm walking around there. I got to put a big smile on when I'm in Walmart, when I'm just walking around, because there's always like these, I don't know, I guess they're the equivalent of like MAGA people, I would say, like that just seem angry all the time. And they like sneer at you and they like walk into you and stuff. Like there's just people at Walmart. It's just a weird place. Like it feels like that at least, right? And so I have to smile wide at them so that it like lowers their defenses or something like that kind of thing, where they're like, okay, I'm not gonna get start randomly arguing or something like that. So
yeah,
but I've got the mask on, so my instinct as I'm walking around is trying to smile wide enough that they can tell that I'm smiling with the mask on, kind of thing. And then I go,
just paint one on the mask.
Yeah,
that's what I was gonna say.
Sure.
Yeah.
And then I think about it for a bit, and I'm like, "Oh man, that's dumb. That's not solving anything." So, anyways, but it's a weird thing. I don't know. I got a burrito the other day, and I ordered it was like the way that it works here now is that you order it on your phone, and then we bring it to your car. So I ordered on the phone.
Like car hop service type thing.
Yeah. So that's what they were kind of doing, so that you don't have to go into the store.
Yeah.
And so I got there and we had parked and just were waiting for them to bring it out, and it had already. I was just being silly because everyone was going in and ordering in. Like it's not. They have like that's like an extra service, but like most people are just like going in without a mask and there's no thing. So I just get for me it's more almost like, I don't know. It's a very strange, uneven thing. And I said this before. I said this like when we were first talking about this kind of stuff, even I remember that like we're in this situation now where like so many people are not taking it seriously at all in a kind of a flippant way that it makes me confused about how to be careful myself, kind of thing, or something like that.
Yeah,
you know,
of course.
So anyways,
I know a lot of people have said this, so it's not anything new, but I really did not imagine that this would become such a retarded partisan issue.
Yeah.
Like I really just didn't anticipate that. Like it's almost like the same attitude of like anti-vaxxers just writ large and becoming totally mainstream. I don't understand what people feel like they have to gain from being like playing fast and loose with like a serious respiratory virus. I don't know. I'm really scared of infecting my parents.
Yeah.
And they are more cavalier than I am,
Sure.
Like
Yeah.
they're just like, oh, whatever, we'll, take off our masks. It's okay. And I'm just like, well, what would happen? Like, what would happen if I got you sick? I don't know. It's pretty terrible. I mean, I've been looking a little bit at the new infection rates across the country. What is it like near you, Donald?
Yeah, so we're on a downward trend. We're not that bad right now. I think it's because, I don't like Doug Ford at all, like our premier, but he has been pretty good about this. I mean, I don't know. Like, if you listen to partisan people here, you're going to hear them rail on the reasons that he screwed up and stuff. But it's just been nice to see him in public, because he does sound like a little kid that got in trouble or something, kind of thing. Like he comes out and he's like, he seems so like punished Doug or something. He's like, he just kind of sits there and he just kind of goes, well, we're gonna keep doing this for another week. And he has this like tone of voice where he feels like he just seems like he screwed up huge and now he's just dealing with the consequences. Like at some level he thinks that he's the one that caused the virus. And I vastly prefer that to someone like Trump, kind of thing. So and he's, or even like someone like Cuomo or something, like all the kind of liberal bluster or something. Like it's just nice to see a right wing guy be like, oh man, I screwed up on this one or something. I don't know. So I don't mind that. Yeah, and so that kind of undermines some of the sort of bozo stuff here because he's been pretty good about following the rules, I think, and all that kind of stuff. Well, I mean, like in theory, kind of thing. So yeah, but I mean, his actual policies for fixing things and like helping poor people and stuff are going to be terrible. But like, at least it's not like a governor in the U.S. where they're like, go back to work now, kind of thing. Whatever. So yeah.
Oh boy.
Yeah.
It's going to be a weird summer,
Yeah.
Last summer we were going to the pool like every day pretty much, right? Like every day that we could. And I'm going to miss doing that because that's obviously closed and I don't think that's going to open up. So, I don't know.
Yeah. Well, I think that's why I'm like so gung-ho into cycling now, because it's something that I can do to stay outside and active, but not be like in the direct vicinity of tons of people,
Yeah, that bike has been really nice. I mean, you've been picking up the CSA stuff with it.
And groceries. Yeah, it's been good for you too.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's nice.
We should check in on that. You said, we talked about the CSA last time you were on here.
Oh, that's true. Yeah.
And so how is it working out so far?
It's great. Yeah, we've had just a couple weeks so far, but it's awesome. I love it. I'm really happy.
Great.
It's at this point in the season, it's mostly greens, and some herbs and little young root vegetables like radishes and tiny salad turnips and stuff like that. And it's been cool. It's been kind of like a challenge to get through. Like, okay, I know I have this much, and I have a week until the next one, so I have to make everything here.
Yeah.
So then it kind of gives you a little theme to go off of each meal. Like tonight, I used the bok choy, the Thai basil, and the spinach from our haul in like a Thai style salad with ground turkey and mung bean sprouts and like a fish sauce lime juice kind of dressing with
Mm-hmm.
like thinly sliced shallots and stuff like that. Um, so yeah, it's just like cool because like every day it's like the challenge to use some of it, and eventually get through it, and it's really tasty. It's really it's like really good quality, really tasty, and it's just kind of cool to me. Like sometimes I just sit there and think about the fact that there was no distribution chain, that it was just grown like in our neighborhood and then we got it. That I don't know, that's cool to me.
It is, yeah, it is
It
cool.
makes
Yeah.
me happy. And each week they send out like here's what you got and here's some pictures of it and here's maybe some recipes that are helpful. So it's nice to be engaged with them too, like talking with the people who run it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, very
Yeah,
like
so
reasonable amounts of each thing too, which is
yeah,
nice.
that's
Like
true.
it's
Yeah.
not any weird proportions. Like you don't have like half of it being bok choy or something. Like you have like a little bit of everything, and it's been pretty
Yeah.
easy, I think, to get through the whole shipment in a week. So it's not like there's a lot of waste or anything at all. So
That's
Yeah,
great.
so
Yeah.
far no waste. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
So
that's
yeah,
good.
I've been kind of on the opposite end of this kind of thing in the last week because, we've been trying to get out more of the house and stuff, and just going into town. And so I've eaten a lot of fast food. So I don't know, but it's been
Ah.
good. In the thing that like I haven't had much in like 3 months, so that
yeah,
like
Yeah.
yeah.
getting like that salty McDonald's is you know it's
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 actually
nice.
like a treat.
Yeah, that's that. Yeah. So, but I gotta get into the swing of things or whatever. So it's hard. It's also hard because I mean I find this generally, but uh, I feel like if I'm not buying, like my dad has been going in the mornings sometimes to get like he was doing that for about 2 months to do like the once a week or something to get the food for the house.
Mhm.
And when I do that, I don't like really putting down too much stuff to get because I kind of be like, well, he has to kind of like look around and find for it and all that kind of stuff. I don't want to make it a hassle kind of thing. So I
Mhm.
just like put a few things, whatever, right? But if I'm not buying for myself, then I'm not going to be cooking for myself and the kind of things that, no variety really, right? Like they're not, like if I'm not buying tofu for myself, then I'm not going to be making tofu stir fry or something like that kind of thing. So that's it. That's, I don't know. I just, I'll have to kind of adjust to that because as I said, when I go into Walmart, it's not that myself and try to buy stuff. It's not that conducive to wanting to shop right now. So yeah,
Yeah.
but
Yeah, even just like the browsing, it's
yeah,
I'm just accustomed to doing that. Like that's kind of like I'm not like a nincompoop while I'm shopping, and
sure,
it takes like
Little
two
bit, a little
hours or
bit.
whatever. Shush. No, I'm
yeah,
good. I'm good at it. But I do like to go through like the whole store to see if there's anything new. And yeah, it's just not a good tactic anymore.
no,
Not
no.
these
So
days.
yeah, that reminded me, that jogged my memory of like a thing that I think that like Zoomers might maybe don't have much of a memory of is spending like 2 hours in a Blockbuster or something. Or like my friends and I would go to like a video store and just be like look through every movie that was there and be
Yeah.
like, which one are we gonna rent? And then sometimes even going in for like an hour and then leaving without something because we didn't
Yeah.
care. And I don't know.
Yeah, for the
I
Zoomers who are listening, it's basically like when you open up Netflix and you're not sure what to watch and you just scroll through everything and you end up not watching anything. It's like
yeah,
that, but you go to a
but
store.
but at the store you also make fun of everything as you see it because you're
Yeah.
I don't know, you're like I don't know.
I saw the movie poster for this movie Prelude to a Kiss today,
Mm-hmm.
And it just reminded me of that era that you're talking about, where I was familiar with all of the covers of tons and tons of movies that I have
Sure.
no interest in, but I still remember the covers, like if I see them to this day, just
Yeah.
because of like, standing around in a Blockbuster. Yeah.
Yeah. I also, there's probably like a 5-year period or something where I just saw almost every movie that came out. And even ones that were like just terrible. And I don't even know how I would have seen them. I think that like either someone else rented them or they were just on TV or something. I don't know. But like, so if I look through like Netflix or something and it's a movie from like the year 2000 or something, there's like a 95% chance I've seen it. If it's a movie from like 2010, there's like a 10% chance maybe, or like a 2% chance. I don't know. So
That's funny.
I don't know. I'd be kind of a weird mood on that kind of stuff. I got mad about that. Did you see that whole thing about like Gone with the Wind? How they took Gone with the Wind down and they're gonna put like a
No.
preamble for it.
No.
So HBO Max I guess had Gone with the Wind on there, and someone said like, that
How
movie's
dare you do that in
yeah.
this day and age, kind of thing?
Yeah, and so they're like, okay, we'll take it down and we'll put like a little intro to it that says like, hey guys, just so you know, like these people are racist or whatever. And 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 I guess like there was like some people that were like, being like, it just caused one of those culture war things online where some people were like they're afraid of a movie, and then the other people are like, if you care about this at all, you're stupid or whatever and stuff like that. And to me, it caused me like to have like a visceral reaction about like wanting, if not physical media, then at least like just collecting movies on hard drives or something again, so that I don't have to deal with any of that kind of stuff and just not pay HBO.
You can just watch your racist movies in peace. I hear you, Tom.
Yeah, I don't know, because it is one of those things where it's like, I don't know. It reminds me of like when Louis C.K. got in trouble and then they pulled a lot of his stuff for a bit, and I don't know. I don't like that because it's just it feels like like lightning storms of just craziness or something that just hit, and then stuff that I might want to watch theoretically disappears or whatever. I'm glad that they haven't done it to like Woody Allen movies or whatever, but like I don't know. So
they're gonna put all that stuff back out there under like canceled editions and
yeah,
That's probably true.
It's true, but it's like, I don't know. It just it makes me viscerally angry, and not even for like good reasons. It's just like, I just get annoyed by, I don't know, priorities and stuff. So
yeah.
You were telling us earlier that you're watching a TV show called Alone, I think.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I started just yesterday. I watched the first 2 or 3, I think 3 episodes. Yeah. It's a reality show of like wilderness survival. And there's 6 seasons of it, and these are the first episodes that I've watched, so I'm sure there are people who are much more familiar with it than I am, but um I started watching it cuz some of my friends, or like one of my friends, was watching it and um was saying that it was very funny. And so a couple other people started watching it and were like, yeah, this is hilarious. And then I put it on and I was like, you guys are soulless monsters. I don't know why you're laughing at these people like like what, I don't know. It's very strange. Like I can understand kind of about why some of it is funny, but it's like a guy like falling and breaking his knee. Like that's I
Yeah.
I don't know, like stranded alone in like the subarctic wilderness. I don't know. It just isn't like haha funny to me.
Yeah.
Um
How
but
close are how close are they, the crew and I guess it doesn't really matter, but like how close are they, like the producers and that?
um I can't tell because of editing, but I would say they're probably like a half hour away would
Okay.
be my guess. I'm not really sure. They might. So the way it works is each contestant goes into, I guess each season features a particular location, and this season 6 is on the Great Slave Lake in Canada. Which province is that in? Is that?
It's in a federal territory. It's like a territory
Oh,
called
okay.
Northwest Territories. So,
Oh, it's in the Northwest Territories. Okay.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's like 70 miles south of the Arctic Circle, and each contestant, there are 10, has their own like little zone. They're all dropped off in their own area where they stay, their like base of operations. So it's not a collaborative show. Like it's just each person on their own, and the last person out there wins. And they all are like, like they all have their own like particular skill set. Like some of them might be hunters, some of them might be more like knowing all of the plant species in the area or something like that.
Yeah.
Some of them might just be like a fair number of them are like ex-military and
Mm-hmm.
like any sort of like survival type, specialties. Yeah, so then they go out there and I think they're allowed to take 10 items with them. And then they also have to carry all their camera gear around to film themselves as they're doing this. And
Mm-hmm.
then they have a little walkie-talkie that can communicate with the show's team nearby. So if they ever are in particular duress, they just say, "Okay, I'm tapping out," and then they come and pick them up, and that's the end of their stint on the show.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So it's very beautiful where they are, but it's going to be winter soon. Like they dropped them off, I think, in like late July, and snow can start in August there, um, August or like September. So yeah, they've got like moose, musk oxen, rabbits, or actually, I think they're hares up there, um, lynx, trout, wolves. Yeah, a lot of cool critters. But I was telling Tom earlier today, sometimes when you watch stuff like that, it makes you think like, wow, I love my creature comforts. Like, I'm glad to be here on my couch watching this,
Yeah.
that kind
Yeah.
of thing. But it the way that it was affecting me was making me so glad for other people, because uh, it just showed how like miserable it is to be actually alone.
Yeah.
Um, like when you in like a survival situation, because everyone one thing and they're out. Like if you even had one other person there, you could be like, you know, I'm throwing up right now. Can you process this fish that I caught? And the other
Yeah.
person can help you out. Like just like that idea of community and doing things collaboratively together, combining your efforts. It just made me so appreciative to like be able to take advantage of so many things that like multiple people have built, and that I can
Yeah.
be around multiple people.
Sure.
Yeah, I don't know. It made me very grateful for community. I like this one woman was making a little trap, and uh, she stabbed herself in the hand, and it's like, okay, well, I guess that's 3 days down the tube. Just can't do anything anymore
Wow.
until this
Yeah.
heals up. Like it's just miserable. It just made me very appreciative to you know I- to have people around, and to take advantage of systems that people have built and that are kind of you know continuing on, even if the people aren't around to keep their hands on it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I don't
I
know.
don't know. It's funny. Yeah.
I,
Yeah.
I don't know if I would recommend the show, but if you like that kind of thing, I guess it's pretty good
Yeah.
so far. I don't know.
I like the way that you've sold it, though. I mean, I like the idea of like, um, this the systems and stuff, and that, especially because I have been having fantasies recently of like just getting a house in the middle of nowhere or something and just living out there.
Mhm.
And yeah, I do think that it doesn't sound like a great idea when put in those terms, kind of thing, or something like that. Like I'd have to have some sort of teamwork there at least. So
Yeah.
maybe if I had like a
Yeah.
wife with me or something. And
Yeah.
yeah.
I mean, that's the thing. Like even if it's just a few people, that is so much better. Like 2 people is like 10 times as good as 1 person.
Yeah.
It's like, exponential like that. Like you can do the more people, the more you can do, but to cover your bases, if you're not worried about like things like income or something like that, if you're actually just worried about like living, like life, like surviving, then, you know, 5 people, 10 people, you could probably do it,
Yeah, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and it just made me think of like things that, like putting up like food preservation, like raising enough food that you can preserve it, and then doing the act of preservation, and then slowly going through those stores as the winter goes on, just like stuff like that, being like, wow, I can't believe we like figured out, when every year to do this and how often to do it and like when you need to
Sure.
prepare. Like I don't know, that's so cool that
It
people
is. Yeah, yeah.
have figured that out.
Yeah.
So what I'm saying is, Donald, Tom, commune.
Yeah,
Soon
yeah, yeah.
as soon as you find your wife,
Sure.
she's got to be cool with it too. But
Yeah.
there we go. We got our first 4 people.
We'll move to the Capitol Hill Autonomous Zone.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
Get all set up.
Well, I mean, here it's interesting because it gets pretty quickly to being like wilderness here after, not that far from me kind of thing, like maybe an hour or two. I'm already in sort of a lightly populated area, but like
Right.
compared to say like, most of southern Ontario, but like it's kind of interesting because, I was saying to you earlier that like it's actually quite expensive to live up there, like in the northern areas,
Right.
whatever, because of everything is shipped out there, and to get like a expert, to get like a plumber or something, you have to like fly someone in or something and all that kind of stuff.
Oh man.
And I guess like so, but the thing is though is that in the Toronto area, the prices are just insane. Like so it's like here like it's still insane because people use it as like a place of stashing money and all that kind of thing, right? So and long-term investment and all that. And so it's kind of an interesting kind of thing where I live particularly, it's not really great for prices because it still has that kind of like, it still kind of tapers off from the Toronto region kind of thing. Like, because if prices were too low here, people would just invest in them as like a, eventually maybe it'll get built out into this area. So it's annoying for like looking at rental prices and all that because it's just like, you're competing against money from like Russian barons or something like that kind of thing, like whatever. So, but there's places in southern Ontario, like southwestern Ontario, where it gets more like kind of like small town Ohio or something, where there's a lot of like drug addiction and all that kind of stuff. Like it's not, it's that kind of cheap housing kind of thing, like it's not like, it's not necessarily that. But then when you get up into more northern Canada, it tends to be more like northern kinds of poverty kind of thing, like a lot of indigenous poverty and stuff like that. So, and that's like a big part of our, I think I'd mentioned this before, but it's like a big part of our like national conversation, whatever, in Canada now, is all this like indigenous poverty stuff. And I think it's like that too in Australia. That's become like a big central sort of left issue or whatever. In the States, I think there's like an inkling of that, but it's still, it is actually kind of funny because there's like to me, like to read a lot of this stuff online because there's like an uneven thing where, well, it's like an uneven sort of level of education about this kind of stuff because people still make a lot of jokes about that. Oh, just like in terms of awareness? Yeah, like a lot of Americans make a lot of jokes about how stupid it is to worry too much about indigenous issues and all that kind of stuff in a way that you would never say in Canada kind of thing. You know what I mean? Like it's like a thing. Although I have to say that like I did feel a pang of that the other day when I saw a model on Instagram. As I enjoy looking at, she said that she had like a photo shoot, and she opened it up by saying like, these pictures were taken on, and then she had like the names of the tribe's land, whatever. And I was like, that's not, you don't have to put that. I don't know. Like, that's not, I don't know. I don't know. Like, it was like it was kind of like a weird, I don't know. To me, that was like a strange instance of that kind of thing. I don't know. That's being a
so
weird kind of,
it didn't have anything to do with the shoot, or like it wasn't in like a, like, is it just the same kind of thing where someone puts in their Twitter bio like occupied blah blah land or something like that?
Yeah, but I'm trying to say that like that makes more sense to me than the model doing it kind of thing. Like, because it's just it's something that comes up a lot, so you just see it a lot kind of thing. Here, like in terms of people just talk about it more, I think maybe at some level, or at least people in the people that I see area kind of thing. And so that kind of makes sense to me. But like doing it to the point where you're like, this photo shoot was taken on this land or whatever is like, okay, well, I don't know. I don't know if that's central to your bikini shots, whatever. So, yeah.
It would be nice to have that conversation be a little bit more central in the US, honestly, because I don't know if you guys can like connect to this at all, but when I was growing up in the 90s, there was a sort of like just like a little pop culture undercurrent of like Native American stuff that was like kind of cool, like mystical stuff, or like, someone might decorate their home with like Navajo patterns or something like that.
Yeah.
And there was kind of a sense of this having been like, well, now we're cool. Like we recognize that there were atrocities committed in the past, which were very distinct from, and uh and now it's just like we're cool, right? Like we can
Yeah.
just like put up a dream catcher and like that's cool. We're appreciating your culture, right? Kachina doll or whatever. And that's kind of how I like grew up, I guess, like just considering it that way. Like, wow, they had these cool cultures that got decimated, and it's very sad that that happened, but um, like now I get to learn about it, so that's cool.
Yeah.
And then I remember my family took a road trip out west, and we went to the Four Corners
Mm-hmm.
states, so Utah, Colorado, Arizona, and New Mexico.
Yeah.
And part of it was driving through a reservation, and I had never seen poverty anything like that. I still haven't, I don't think, anywhere that I've ever been. I've never seen anything that, like, I was crying, like, just
Yeah.
driving through it. It was shameful doesn't even express it. I
Yeah.
could not believe, because people still are in that situation. They're still
Sure.
there. It's like it's not a relic of
Yeah.
the past. And something that you see nowadays is like, the gall that it of like pretending that like we're cool now and this is over. You can clearly see, you know, like the modern form of, I don't want to call it colonialism, I guess, because that seems a little bit wrong, but anytime, and this is especially true in Canada, anytime there's an indigenous group protesting anything like mining or oil pipeline or something like that on their land, you want to see that stuff still in action today. Like, look at how the police and military in the US respond to those people.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
complete brutality. Like,
Sure.
there's none of that like warm fuzzy let's decorate my house type stuff going on there. It like we're like still ready to kill them. You know?
Yeah.
It's so it would be nice to have that a little bit more honest and at the forefront of the American conversation, because they're still here. Like, it's not history.
Yeah.
I mean, it's different from how it is in Canada, I know, but it would be cool to have that be part of the conversation. At the same time, maybe, the fact that it's part of the conversation, as you were mentioning in Canada, and like you also mentioned Australia, shows how not consequential it is to have something as part of the conversation, because the situation on the ground maybe is not really changed that much by talking about it. Like the same terrible things are happening in Canada as in the U.S. in a lot of cases, you know.
Yeah, although I do think that like there is a shift within at least the discourse of the broad left. Yeah, I guess like that. I don't know. I think that it's very strange because you know, like the you can take the settler colonial stuff too far, and it gets kind of strange and weird when I think it goes too far. But at a very basic level, you do have a lot of communities in Canada where these kind of fights are quite open. It's not like it's not like it's similar to say the racist things in the States with the police and that. It's very similar in terms of like you seeing like, you know, because it comes up constantly in terms of rights claims on resources and
that makes sense.
You know, the courts have actually, it's interesting because our Supreme Court has been it's been pushing quite a lot towards the idea that like you need to have deep actual consultations and sort of like defer to sovereignty of local nations and stuff like that, and kind of, you know, going into a lot of, it's been pushing in that direction, but there is still a sort of basic right that the government claims and that the courts kind of back up, which that like at the end of the day the government can do what it wants to do, kind of thing.
Yep,
right? So,
exactly.
So that sort of basic claim has become it's become like a flashpoint because it's so central to like liberal ideas of the state that you can't really get beyond it if you want to have a functioning capitalist economy. You just can't do it because, like, say they're trying to build a pipeline from Alberta to BC into the ocean. You can't do that if a local tribe can veto that, right? Like you just can't do it because they'll just veto it, whatever, right? So they have to have at some level some reserve power where they can say, okay, at the end of the day, we're allowed to just push through whatever we want, kind of thing. And that's it's been interesting because it's difficult because at like the theoretical level, even because the closer you get to the ground of like actual things is that it doesn't fit into any sort of simple ideological framework. Like it's not like say one of the main people that were protesting the pipeline were a group of hereditary chiefs. So there is like a band council that's elected, and that elected council, I believe, was sympathetic to the project of pushing through this pipeline and stuff like that. So, but the hereditary chiefs said that we have, you know, within our tradition, we're the ones that have say on defending this land or whatever and stuff like that. So that kind of causes a double problem for the liberal state in some ways because it can't accept hereditary power, number one, really. And it can't, but, you know, so what level of pluralism are you allowed to accept, kind of thing, right? Are you saying that not only, because that's not even just self-government, that's self-government plus a totally different form of government, really, right? So, you know, like in the States, they have a thing in the Constitution that says that the Republican form of government will be guaranteed to be part of the United States. You can't have, you know, states that have dictatorships or whatever and stuff like that. You have to have the same basic model, right? But it's the same kind of thing, really, in a liberal state. You couldn't have like a monarchy, you know, somewhere within it. I mean, you know, within the monarchy or something, you'd have to have the same kind of system. So I don't know. That's kind of it's interesting to me because, you know, the left has been very quick to defend the hereditary chiefs and kind of go, you know, because they're standing in the way of the project, but it's also like, okay, well, how far are you willing to go with that or whatever? Yeah. So, I don't know.
It kind of gets in the way of the emirate plan, doesn't it? We need to figure out how that will work.
Sure. Yeah. I don't know. What is like what's like is there like equivalents that people used like in the past? I feel like if you're writing a history text in like 1700, would you call them emirates or like, is it like prince or what is the, like, what is the term?
If I guess usually the leader of an emirate would be an emir, and emir just means like it means commander, so it can also be like an emir can be a military leader. It doesn't necessarily mean that that the leader of an emirate is a militarist. It's not a militaristic state necessarily. It just sort of has that meaning. A lot of the terms are sort of exchangeable. Like sultan, that's derived from I don't know the exact etymology, but it has to do with like authority. I don't know what the other ones would be. I can't think of them right now, but yeah, they don't necessarily have specific meanings that I'm aware of. Maybe I'm wrong about that, but I think different polities have, they just have a certain title and they're constructed in different ways and stuff. So.
And are emirs like elected? How does that, or is it like a hereditary always, or is it like, is there some sort of?
Most often those were hereditary positions, I think, but not always. I don't think there were a lot of elected leaders in that sense. Mm-hmm. And it's not necessarily always. Sometimes it's by like a chosen successor. It's not necessarily hereditary like that. That could be the case too. So,
yeah. One thing about the emir stuff that I was thinking about the other day is, I don't know. I feel like it's almost like you have to run back time and then think of like how low the population was in some of these places and stuff, and like think of like the equivalent today of what that would mean. Like of like and it's kind of funny because it's humbling in a way, looking at the past and being like, that guy had, it was one of the greatest kings in history or whatever, and he had like 200,000 people under his control or something like that. It's just just basically he was just a mayor that people wrote a lot about or something. So and like it's not like a big deal, or even like and also I think like time scale. I think it's another thing that like like I read something that like to go from, I think it was like something like from Philadelphia to I guess like South Carolina or something. I don't know, something like that. It was like 2 weeks or something of like travel, like just walking around or whatever, doing like stuff. They just took a long time apparently, just to get anywhere during like the founding of the, like in 1776 or something like that kind of thing. Like around that, apparently it was like a really slow process just doing anything. So I don't know. Yeah. So it's like when you're reading about these things, it's like these events happen and it's like, yeah, it was like a very slow process always, and also like small numbers of people. So it's almost like, that's maybe one reason why history feels like it telescopes in some ways, kind of thing, because it's just like, I don't know. But
I think about that with court intrigues too sometimes, where like different states not having instantaneous access to one another digitally, like how long it would take for like someone to, like it could take like 3 weeks for someone to know that he had been betrayed or something like that, you know?
Yeah.
It's such a strange stretching of time.
Yeah. Or like from the perspective of a peasant or something, not knowing who the king was for years and stuff. And
I think about that quite a bit, like how distant and removed from your whole life the politics and stuff might be, unless it involves a war that specifically impacts your town or something like that. You might not know or care or anything. Like, who's the king now? Oh, whatever. The tax collector comes around once a year.
Right.
You tell him to screw off, and then they're like, oh, well, okay. See you next year.
Is that how easy it was, Tom?
A lot of times, yeah. It takes a lot of resources. Like, you have to weigh, like, is it worth it to go in there with like a bunch of troops and pay them to, and like, how much am I getting out of this?
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that the more that I think about it too, is that like, that's why I think that monarchy and all that kind of stuff made sense for a lot of human history. I think that like a lot of the smart, educated people, like for their time, whatever, if they were like eccentric thinkers and all that kind of stuff, I think that they probably thought like a republican form of government or something like that, or like, some sort of collective rule was possibly ideal or something like that. If they weren't like, if they were sort of progressive thinking or whatever, I think that was still probably on their minds in some ways, like thinking of the Roman Republic as an ideal or whatever, and Greek democracy as an ideal. But like, It really does. If you're thinking about these kingdoms and like what the government had to do and all that kind of stuff, it makes sense that like the average person probably thought of ruling as, or like average educated person thought of ruling as a skill and not like it wasn't really so much a debate as it was there's a smart thing to do in most situations kind of thing, right? And I think that changes the way that you think of the state in a lot of ways, because I feel like we're in a strange in-between period where it hasn't been reduced to a technique yet kind of thing. It's more kind of like we're not really sure what we should be doing a lot of the time. There's like a lot of like debates over what should be happening and, you know, whether or not you should go to war with this person or that person and all that kind of stuff. I think those kind of debates probably happen, but a lot of them were probably very, very, you know, straightforward to people. Like it was like, you know, if you heard of something, you know, oh, the barbarians are attacking. Okay, you got to go do what you do when barbarians attack or whatever kind of, you know, like I don't think that there was this same confusion or something, especially with religion. And think a lot of the time for like hundreds of years, probably most of the basic religious stuff just seemed straightforward or something for a lot of places kind of thing. It wasn't like huge. I mean, like theological debates happened and were important, but a lot of the time I think that like there was long periods where it just wasn't, you know, it wasn't in question in the same way that it would be now or something. So I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think the state now occupies, it just has a lot more control over so much of life that it matters like what they do. And, yeah, like it does. I agree with you. It does seem like we're kind of in a transition from, okay, now the state has more ability to just make things happen. And so whoever is in charge, that like the way that is structured, the leadership is structured, that matters a lot more, like whether it's a single person or has more like collective accountability and that kind of thing. But yeah, like at a certain point, hopefully we get to a place where it's just sort of like obvious what you need to do. Like it, for example, like with climate and environmental policies and stuff, you know, that's not going to be a matter of opinion and politics as such, like in the sense of like, you know, my ideology says this versus the other ideology says that. It'll just be like, well, this is what you do because that's what makes sense. And then the leadership will be, you know, back in the position of just like making it more of like a management kind of decisions. Like, okay, how do I make sure that this runs smoothly instead of like trying to guide this ship, you know?
Yeah.
But don't you think that the way things are going now, where it's becoming more and more ideological, even in the face of like physical necessities and like realities, that I don't know if it'll ever become what you're talking about, Tom, because at least like the world now doesn't make it seem like it could be.
Yeah, I'm not saying that it would. I'm just saying hopefully. That's like an ideal trajectory, but who knows?
For me, I think that it's just teaching me some of the, you know, some of the virtues of leadership or something kind of thing. Like what is good about being able to be a good ruler or a good thing in a way that like, I feel like a lot of sort of more simplistic Marxist views of history, when you read things in the past, you just can't relate to them, except in class struggle terms or something like that kind of thing. You can't read about, you know, a king or something without being, you know, you can't look at their virtues or something, or like what there was interesting about them, or whether or not they made good decisions without just kind of turning it into, oh, well, he was lining up the, you know, rural rabble or whatever kind of thing. You know what I mean? Like it's not like, it just becomes too simplistic. And I don't know. I think that it also, once you learn that kind of thing, it makes it easier to understand how a lot of middle class people view politics already, because they do care, especially like writers and stuff. I think like the opinion writer kind of people and stuff, a lot of the time they do care about like experience governing and, you know, all this kind of stuff. Like it's not just a matter of creating a new list of good things to do kind of thing. It's also like they want people who, you know, now the problem is that they're also often very cynical and stupid about that. Like it's not like they're not actually looking for those kind of things. But, you know, I was thinking about this the other day when I was saying this to you, Tom about like a Green Party person here who seems like a nice person, but do I think that she would be ready to be prime minister next week or something like that? No, like I don't. And it's like, does that matter to me at some level? And I go, now that I'm getting older, I think that maybe it does, because it's like, if a person doesn't have some level of experience and whatever, then it's like, that they're going to get easily fooled or easily screwed up in some problem or something, that kind of thing, like, even someone like Bernie Sanders, I think it's great that he was an outsider and all that kind of thing. But it's like, if he had been a governor or something like that, wouldn't that have been better in some ways? Not necessarily for his project, whatever, but I just mean that, like, if you had experience from the other side, like if you had experience, it's like a paradox, but it's like one of those things where it's like, it's, I don't know, that kind of stuff is mattering to me more, and not from like a more conservative view kind of thing, really more. It's just that, like, it's like, there is some sort of problem there. It's like there's a type of leadership which is just opposition, which doesn't necessarily teach you about leadership that's constructive or something. So
yeah. I mean, Trump hasn't been too bad, and he didn't have any political experience.
Yeah. I don't know. I think he's been pretty bad, but yeah. Anyways, how about we get into some questions, because we've already had a nice chat. So
sure, yeah, we're always gonna have a big pile to get through, but we will try to pick some of the good ones here. Let's see. All right, so first question here: as the world's biggest socialist democracy, why isn't India doing more to spread the revolution? Maybe they could link up with known socialist Emmanuel Macron to do some good.
So so this is because one of the things that I like about India that I think is funny is that in their constitution it says, it has like a clause in their preamble or something where it says something like India is a democratic socialist country or something. Like, it says, it actually does say like a democratic, free, whatever, socialist country. And I always like that because it still says it now, I think. Like, I think it's still there today. It was put there by Nehru, I guess, right? And it's funny to me because it's one of those things where socialists, point to China as having a socialist constitution, and the reason why is because it says in the constitution we're socialists, whatever. So I always say that, like, is Modi a socialist then? Because the Indian constitution says that they're socialist, whatever. So anyways, that's what that is from. But then, and then Macron, someone told me that Jacobin's Europe writer, basically one of their main Europe guys, I guess, David Broder, he was saying that, like, I was wrong about this apparently, but like Macron used to be, I think, socialist many years ago. But he was apparently he was never elected as one, maybe, I don't know. Anyways, but yeah, I always think it's funny that, like, I don't know. It's just one of those things where you can. I had this idea once where, like, you could make a map of the world. It's less relevant now because the right wing has been making all these gains everywhere. But you could make a map of the world and say what countries or regions, you could just even have like state level governments or something, are currently under control of someone that claims to be socialist in some way. And that would be like China, India, Mexico. If it was pre at the time, whatever. I guess it's still, Mexico would still be, but Brazil with Lula and Dilma, whatever, was, the Workers' Party and stuff. They were socialist, I guess. France was Francois Hollande, whatever, at the time. So he was a socialist party, so that France is socialist. Stuff like that. You could just kind of go through all the different countries, and it's because it became one of those, like, hurrah word things, right, where everyone called themselves socialist, and it meant nothing at a certain point. And I don't know. I always find that funny. I think that's like a very basic internet thing to. If you can't wrap your mind around that, I think then, like, you're gonna have a bad time online or something, because you'll be like, I don't know, talking about how Cambodia is still socialist or whatever. So.
Yep. Been a baby Finland / get fiscal lurker for at least 11 years now. Keep up fighting the good fight of trolling mods. You got it.
Aw, that's very sweet.
Thank you.
We're going to do this till we die, I think.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I was gonna say that we'll probably get canceled at some point, but then I was like, yeah, we'll probably just keep doing it. We'll have like 20 listeners or something, and be like, so did you? I don't know. Will you be in prison? They'll allow us to do the thing. They'll be like, I don't know.
You'll smuggle out your tape boy or your talk boys to me.
Yeah.
Yeah. I always think of that one. Someone once said to me that, like, I think I said something on the podcast or something about, like, I'm going to get canceled for this or something. And someone said, like, Tom being worried about getting canceled is like the end of Sixth Sense when he realized he's been a ghost for the whole movie or something.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I was thinking about it the other day that, like, I've gotten over the last year, like, a lot more followers and stuff. And I am certain that, like, that is a temporary thing. I feel like within the next year or two, I don't know. I feel like anything that goes up must come down. You don't, I don't know, on the internet, whatever, unless you just become one of those people who are like I was gonna, like Chris D'Elia or something. You just have like a million followers, but then get canceled too much kind of thing. You don't want to do that. You want to plateau and then
and
slowly
just become
fade
part of the
or something.
background.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of people who just are in that category too. Like,
yeah, that's fine.
People don't necessarily remember what exactly made them notable or worth following, but everyone still follows them.
Yeah, exactly. Because you see people that have like 100,000 followers and blue checks, and then you look at the interactions on their tweets, and they have like 20 retweets on like a post or something, and it's like, I don't know. That's fine. That's my future. So, it'll be it's better than I think I don't know.
Getting too into the gamification of that has always struck me as kind of sad, or just like not a good use of someone's care and energy,
Yeah. But it is one of those things where it's very strange because it does change your attitude towards, or like it changes, like there's a lot of things now that I just don't post because I know I'll get like, every response field is like complete kind of thing. Like if I post about, say, I don't post about like, say, I'm going to watch a TV show that has a spoiler in it or something, because I'll get like 100 replies about like spoiling the show and all that.
Yeah.
Stuff like that. Like that changes, I think. But like, I don't know. If you go too far with it in the other way, I think, I don't know. So, yeah.
Okay, next question here is Canada's relative sectarian harmony between Catholic Quebec and the Protestant majority attributable in part to President Drake's Jewish beliefs and heritage? I think that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. I don't know. I had this thing I was doing for a while, and it never caught on, but I really still think it's funny. Is this idea that like Drake is the toughest guy in Canada, and that like we're all afraid of him. And I would post things about like how he everyone in Toronto just like won't say his name because even saying his name will get you in trouble or whatever and stuff. And I don't know. I think that I also with the sectarian stuff, I think it's also because everyone just left the Protestant churches basically in Canada. Like they just gave up on it. It used to be something like, I think that Canada used to be something like 75%, 25% Protestant. Like, I mean, 75% Protestant, 25% Catholic or something. And now it's like 25% Catholic and 15, like and 20% Protestant or something. You know what I mean? Like all those people just left for like nominal religious kind of thing. They didn't really, I don't know. All the churches are smaller now. So, yeah.
Okay, how about this one? Is consuming goods produced in part by slaves, food, clothing, electronics, bad for our souls?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, I think it is too, but it's really tricky to, extract yourself from that when it's like fundamental to the economy.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I do think that there's sort of like if you can extricate yourself from a lot of that kind of stuff, you have to be almost like a superhero kind of thing or something, or like a saint to be able to actually go all the way with it and stuff and do it like cleverly. But I do think that like the opposite is, just mindlessly doing everything is you have to be careful about. But like it's hard to break that because I feel like you don't even really know that's a part of your life until you give like you're careful about it or whatever. So yeah.
Yeah. I was laughing the other day because there were these posts that were that everyone was posting and reposting on Instagram of like these brands that you definitely use. Guess what? They use slave labor.
Yeah.
Okay, very productive. But I just was like joking to Tom like, "Oh my gosh, it's so easy to be a saint. Did you know that I was a saint because I just buy everything generic and from the dollar store? I
Yeah.
didn't know that I was so good."
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, because
Like
that
as though
stuff is
that
definitely made
on the up
by
and up.
fair
Yeah,
trade,
exactly.
unionized workers. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
I try to be sympathetic to that kind of thing because I'm like, it's just people trying to figure stuff out. Like think a lot of the time I don't like I used to be kind of more cynical about it to the point where I was like, well, it's just people trying to shame each other, like trying to be like I'm the cool one and you're not kind of thing on this kind of stuff.
Mm.
But like I do think at some level there's people that are just like I don't know. Well, I mean I really do think that like for a lot of people it's just there's like a panic moment where they feel like they're dislocated and they feel like say they think that like racism is somehow like they recognize that there's a serious problem in society. They feel panicked that they're contributing in some way, and then they find some temporary solution by say donating $1,000 or something like that kind of thing. Do you know what I mean? Like there's that kind of cycle of I don't know. Like I've seen the phrase "open your wallet" so much now online,
Yeah.
and I don't know. It's
Don't
hard
open
because
my wallet. You let all the moths out.
yeah. But it's hard to you don't want to be. I don't know. It's like you don't want to be. It's like part of it is at least a good impulse or something. So I don't know.
Yeah, no, I think that it's great to have the moral impulse there to be like, hey, that's not good.
Yeah.
Like that. Yeah, obviously no complaint
Sure.
about that. It's just one of those things of like pointing something out with no viable solution.
Sure.
It is worth pointing out because people should know, but when part of it is probably just me being old too, because like once I've seen
Yeah.
it pointed out 18,000
Sure.
times and there still is no resolution, I just kind of like am twiddling my thumbs impatiently, and
Yeah.
morally too. Like that's what my heart is doing, right?
Yeah.
Like waiting for a way to live morally, it gets frustrating.
Well, that's actually
But
that's a really good point though about like the seeing it a bunch of times because I think that's one thing that especially people in our sort of milieu on Twitter and stuff, cliches are like the worst thing you can do a lot of the time. You know what I mean? Like we get really angry quite quickly at people saying things that seem trite to us because they've been said a million times, and that almost becomes in itself a value. And I think that's I think it's also like where that happens a lot with any sort of political thing, right? It doesn't necessarily have to be a left thing or a right thing because I think it works the same way with more conservative takes on things. Like you see, you just see so many different things about like trans issues or something or whatever online that eventually you kind of go, oh, that's trite, and you get annoyed at it and just you see people being silly and stuff, and that's just one way of interpreting that. And it doesn't necessarily mean that even at the end of the day you think that you don't not necessarily take that side or whatever, be critical of them in different ways, but you're just so used to seeing the same dumb arguments all the time that it becomes a part of the discourse or something. So I think that happens with
and you get I just find that I get burnt out on topics without ever having like followed them through.
Sure.
And that's not a good place to be in.
Yeah. I mean, you want to give people the benefit of the doubt but at the same time, that doesn't mean that you need to go like whole hog, like, crazy about it. Like, you can kind of understand that, like, yeah, this is a bit silly or kind of pointless or whatever. But at the same time, like, appreciate that people, for the most part, probably have good intentions, and they're not all necessarily doing like that cynical, like, scold kind of thing,
Sure. Yeah.
All right. What are y'all opinion of cults? Obviously, some cults are not so bad after all, like Falun Gong. Would you consider taking the beliefs of some cults seriously?
What the heck?
Yeah, I don't know.
That's a strange example to use.
It's just a joke, but yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No, but yeah. Yeah, I think that I would say that I think that, like, we had a episode that we just did about wisdom literature and stuff like that. I think that, like, if you don't have much of a background in that, or if you don't have much, like, if you have, like, maybe a sort of like mal-religious upbringing or something kind of thing, like where you were in fundamental Christianity or something where it ended up feeling like harmful to you or something. A lot of these, like, new religions or different things, like different, not necessarily even religions, but just like master theorist kind of things, where like a guy has all these thoughts or something about something and sells them to you. They can seem really compelling because they are using that kind of basis that exists in religion, and then like if you can kind of repeat some of the cliches that are part of our sort of like human heritage or something, you sound like a super genius or something, right? Like you sound like, to a person that doesn't have that rooting in culture, you sound like you know a huge amount about how things work. And the fact that you kind of have this weird, it's like a refracted view of religion or something, right? Like it's like it's a very easy way of, and it can be manipulative, but it's also like, it's like a substitute or something. It's like it fits something that you're looking for otherwise or something kind of thing, I think. So yeah, I think that's the thing that people, I think, have a hard time sometimes getting, is because it's not just, if you tell people that it's just stupid or something, that they're part of a cult or whatever, I don't think that they've, because there are a lot of things that the cult probably tells them that is very intelligent. It's just not from the cult, it's from other things. So yeah.
Yeah, you want to provide alternatives.
Yeah. But like if you read, I'm sure that, like, if you read, say, L. Ron Hubbard's books or something, I'm sure there's lots of smart stuff spiced throughout it that seem insightful, but it's not like, it doesn't come from there, it comes from other places, right? So it's that is, I think, confusing to people if they don't have like a cultural background where they can figure that out. So
yeah, it's also kind of points to the idea that it's good to read a wide variety of things and not just sort of lock in, like, I like this sort of thinking, this is the, and then just read all the canon from that, like, kind of ideological tendency or whatever. You want to read stuff that is sort of like on the opposite end, or stuff that people just dismiss or criticize. Like, read it for yourself. And people, you don't have to agree with everything someone says to, like, see that, oh, like, this is an intelligent person, and I do agree with some of it, but I don't necessarily agree with, like, the certain conclusions of it, or just the bent that they take, or maybe you just, like, really strongly disagree with it, but you can still see that, like, they're intelligently working through something. There's a lot of benefit to that. Like, even if you end up just being like, yeah, I don't buy it, it's useful to be able to see that, like, these are all people with their own, like, they're not, it's not like there's just good people and they have all the right ideas and they know everything, and then there's the bad people who are wrong about everything and they have only malicious intent and all that kind of stuff, you know?
Sure. Yeah.
Would you consider taking the beliefs of some cults seriously? I'm not sure exactly what that question means. Like, if a cult proposed something that like made sense to me, would I take it seriously? I'm not really sure how to answer that. You guys have any thoughts on that?
I mean, doesn't that kind of just go back to what Donald was saying, that there might be some wisdom or like nuggets of truth and you know, helpful stuff in these, but that they aren't necessarily of that thing. They're just like from elsewhere that help to reassure someone of the veracity of the cult.
Yeah, I
So
suppose
yeah,
so.
I mean, yeah, if a cult said something that was true, I wouldn't be like, no, that's not true. Like it you know, true is true. So,
Yeah.
but that doesn't mean I would be like crediting the cult for it or thinking, well, these guys might not be so bad, you know.
All right. Hey Donald, should I convert to Islam? Hey Tom, should I convert to Catholicism? He's trying to get us here. You see what he's doing there, Donald? It's pretty tricky.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. It's hard because I guess I would say go for it, and I'm fine with that. I think that you know, assuming that you're coming from like a cynical atheistic background or whatever, you know, just you know, try out Islam for a year or whatever, you know, see how that goes, and then settle into Catholicism for the rest of your life after that, I guess.
My answer is no. All right, next question. What was God thinking when he made the dinosaurs? Nothing? Okay.
I don't know. It makes me uncomfortable to presume what God is thinking.
Yeah, that's a fair point.
It just made me think about dinosaurs and how cool they are.
Yeah.
That's about all I got out of that one.
Yeah, I don't really know. There is sort of like this isn't like a really important part of Islamic beliefs or anything. It's just sort of like something that has floated around for a while, and I don't think even a lot of people really subscribe to these beliefs anymore. I think it's more of like an old kind of thing. But there is some ideas about what happened before humanity came, and that there was like a war amongst jinns, that jinn were here before humanity was, and that they had a war, and the person who, or the jinn who was able to conquer all of them and unite all of them is actually like Iblis, Shaitan, and that's why he was elevated to the position that he was in the court with the angels, and then from there he, you know, once Adam was created, he rebelled against God and all that kind of stuff. So I when I was reading about that, I was sort of thinking like, I wonder if dinosaurs were like the vehicles through which the jinn like fought their wars, kind of like mech troops kind of thing, you know. And they had this big war and stuff.
That's cool. Yeah.
And then God was like, you know what? Enough of this. Sending down a meteor. Okay. Reset button.
Oh. I really don't like that. Tom, you reminded me, I forgot this until now, but I think one of the very first topics that, like when I started listening and reading and watching stuff about Islam with you, I think one of the first topics that we ever came across was, what does Islam have to say about aliens?
Oh, yeah.
Maybe that was the levity involved in that was a good intro for me.
That's funny.
Yeah. I forgot about that, but it was really funny about like, I think it was maybe like Muhammad Ghilan like seriously talking about like the implications of that,
well,
of like the odds of intelligent life elsewhere in the universe and stuff like that, you know.
yeah, he would be the kind of person to take it like that. So Ibn Taymiyyah actually wrote a text on this. I don't think it was a very like a full book. I think it was just a part of a book,
like a little treatise or something.
Yeah, and it is based on the idea that in the Fatiha, God is referred to as the Lord of the worlds in the plural.
Right.
And that's most commonly understood to mean like different kind of worlds in the sense of not like planets exactly, but like the world of like that we know as the world, right? But then there's also like the world of the angels and like these kind of they operate on
jinn.
Yeah, they're like on different
levels of reality.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. Different levels of reality, different like I was going to say planes of existence, but that sounds a little bit.
But it's true. I know what you're saying.
Yeah. So that's the common understanding, I think. But Ibn Taymiyyah being kind of the
the autist that he could be.
Yeah, exactly. He said that could very well be taken literally, and that it completely opens up the possibility of created things, living things on other places, just living elsewhere, and that then it goes immediately into like, well, what religion would they follow? And then his conclusion is that they probably would follow all the same religions that we have. They would have the same variety of religions and have their own prophets and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm. That's funny.
Yeah, I like that sort of thinking, and the same along the same lines, the idea that animals have also had their own prophets, and they are all emulating like a perfect dog and a perfect cat and a perfect elephant and all this kind of stuff. Yeah, because there's a line in the Quran that says that we have not created the animals except that they form communities like yourselves. So some scholars have taken that to mean that just as all the different communities, like ummah is the word, communities in amongst humanity, they are all based on prophetic teachings of a certain prophet. That's also probably then true of the animals, and so they've also kind of done the same.
I think a lot of I don't know about Europeans maybe, but Americans might be surprised at how little antipathy there is between Islam and like scientific type thinking. Mm-hmm. Just because that's such a big like culture war thing in the U.S. Like if you're a scientist or an academic in science, you have to be like, oh, those religious thinkers, they're always saying that the Earth is 6,000 years old, and it's like there's I don't know. I've been some of the science writing that I've read recently seems to go in these little tangents that don't really have anything else to do with the topic that they're dealing with, that seem to address this. And yeah, I don't know. It just is. It was a new thing for me, at least, realizing that that same sort of like cats versus dogs type attitude doesn't really exist. It doesn't really. That's not present in Islam.
It's not present in a lot of. I mean, even I think it only really applies to a certain kind of Protestant Christian that exists in North America, and that yeah. Like really, I don't even think that can apply to most Protestants. And I don't think it applies to like all the other types of Christians. Really, I've never heard of like Catholics kind of promoting that kind of stuff.
Well, it's one of those things that kind of becomes like it changes the conversation sometimes, where that may not have there may not have been a conflict before, but since it's become a culture war thing, then all of a sudden it's something that people care about,
Yeah. I think it's really pernicious because then those people quickly, it enables a kind of thinking where it's like, oh, well, the reason that they think these silly things is because they don't follow like the scientific methodology in all things. They don't have like empiricist approaches to all knowledge. And therefore, that's why there's such an evil presence in the world. But they don't apply that to like any other thing that you could say that about. Like you could say that about artists. Are you going to say like art is now some sort of evil, anti-science, anti-progress, blah, blah, blah? Like,
yes.
Okay, well, fair enough. All right. Okay, let's wrap it up here with this last one. This is a good suggestion for a guest. It says, have Adolf Hitler on the pod already, you cowards. He lives in Brazil. Okay, so I think maybe this explains the Brazilian fan base that we seem to have.
Yeah.
So, all right. Yeah. If you guys want it, we'll arrange it, you know. We're here to serve.
Yep. So, Adolf Hitler, if you're listening, please get in touch.
Yeah, you got my number. Okay, so thanks for coming on again, Tabs. It's always a pleasure.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, it was fun.
All right, if you guys enjoyed this episode and you'd like another episode of You Can't Win every week, you can subscribe to the Patreon, and you will also get access to our Discord where you can chat with us in our community. Until next time, we'll see you next week. Or we'll see you next week. I'll edit that to make that sound better.
Okay. I figured.
Bye.
Bye, guys.